Hey, fellow blingies. Okay, so today we are going to demo how to bling the tip of a pair of Converse. I just put a little bit of bling on them so far. Just it came with this design already, and I'm just putting a little bling on those, and then putting a little bling on the tip. So, what you'll need, of course, is the Converse or any shoe that has a fish head, is what they used to call them back in the day. Stuff something in it just to make it solid. Give you some pressure there. You're also going to need some glue. Today I'm going to use my handy dandy liquid fusion with the stick pin in it. This is one of those precision tip glue bottles, but I usually pull the tip out so that I can put the safety pin in it. Ooh. I wish I'd do this without glasses on, and I'm blind, but you don't understand. You'll get old one day. So your glue, I have rhinestones here. These are going to be mostly 4mm, which is SS16, crystal clear rhinestones. These are resin. These aren't glass, but resin will shine just as bright. Resin is more of a plastic than glass, but they're less expensive. I thought I was buying glass. Anyway, I'm going to pour them into this little dish. This dish has ridges. The ridges, when you shake it, will turn the rhinestones right side up for you. As you can see, they're all any kind of way right now. And then when I finish shaking it, they're mostly turned up right. You will need your handy dandy file or Dremel, whatever one you use. I use a Dremel, which is basically a thing that they use at the nail salon. It has a removable tip on a tip. It's a file, it's like a sandpaper, but on a tip, and you just put it on here. And when you plug it in on the other end, there's a power switch. You can turn it on and off, and speed it up and down as you need the speed. 1 second while I plug it in. Okay, so as you can see, when I turn it on, it spins. It can go that way or that way, depending on your speed. But you always want to sand before you glue anything, because it will help it lock tight against whatever surface it is. And try to do this backwards for you so you can see. I'll do it a little slower speed. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm going to slow it down just a little bit. And basically, I'm just going to file this whole surface. I'm going to rough it up a little bit. You can use hand sandpaper if you'd like. I just, over the years, got tired of making my hands hurt that way. I think I'm going the opposite direction than I need to be going. You'll know if you should go the opposite direction, because it'll pull in a direction you don't want it to pull and give you a little less control. This was trying to pull me this way, and I don't want to go into this rubber, so now I want it to pull me that way. If I get pulled at all, a little bit more control. I'm going to turn it so I can see it. You can see little pieces flying off of it. Because this is rubber. Sometimes you might want to use a rubber glue. Some people use E6000 glue. So I just want to try that this week. I'll do it on the other one just to see. So you can paint the tip if you want the tip to be a different color than the color you're going to stone. I mean the color that it is, and you want a stone at a different color. Like I could paint this tip red and use red stones, or blue, or black, whatever. But just make sure you use the color stone close to the base color because it minimizes what the gaps look like. With rubber, I always want to use acetone, whether I'm doing Crocs or whether I'm doing the tip of a Converse. As you can see, it's roughed up. All right, now I'm just going to take this acetone and I'm just going to wipe down the tip. Wipe it down real good because a lot of these rubbers have oils in them and you want to get the oil out. Don't be afraid of the acetone unless you have on fingernails like I do, and it can take off your paint. But I have a nail appointment today, so I'm not so worried about it. But wipe it good, get the oil off. All the sanding that you did, the oil could be down in those grooves, so you want to make sure you get those out. And where's my handy dandy brush to brush off the excess? Oh, there it is. Inside of its case, right where it's supposed to be. Excuse me. Handy dandy brush, just to get all this excess. You see it falling? Anything that could be inside of the grooves that I just made. I really want to just make sure I get it all off. And now you see, it kind of looks smooth again. But it's not. It's just clean. Now for the pattern, you're going to want to go around first row, second row, third row before you start going across. So you're going to take some glue and make your first, try to do this backwards for you, your first rim. Wait, before I get started, because you know I'm blind, let me turn on my handy dandy magnifying light glasses. They're a little bit dirty, but I can see through them. Yes, even though it's daytime out here, this is an extreme help. All right, let's do this again. Glue around the rim. Then brought your glue. You don't want to use a whole lot. You see that little rim. I'm going to put the pen back into my glue bottle and tilt it downward so that when I'm ready to do it again, the glue is already ready for me. I'm going to take my handy dandy picker pen. This pen is a little dull, so I'm going to go ahead and sharpen it if I can find my sharpener. Sharpen it just like a pencil. See? Peel off this paper because it'll get on in your way. But there's the sharper tip, and I'll just get the excess glue that was already on it from my last project off of it. And there you go. This pen just pretty much picks up the rhinestones one at a time for you, so that you don't have to worry. And yeah, these have been worn once, apparently, but they're still doable. Let me turn around so you can see me. So the pen picks up the rhinestones one at a time. These are foil on the back rhinestones. That's what makes me think they're glass, because most of the resin ones that I've seen have had the same color on the back. Let me turn it this way some so you can see. Same color on the back as they do on the front, and that's the plastic, but these are foil lined, which makes me believe they really are glass, because I know I ordered it, but the packet says resin, so I'm going to go with what they said at their store that I ordered it from. But anyway. And you just put them one right next to the other, all the way around, and push them together. Uh-oh, not enough glue. I was talking too long. It dried right there. Put another little stripe. I should just double up the stripe all the way around now, because I sharpening pencils and talking and gluing and finding stuff. Trying to do it backwards, you're just pushing together. Yes, I'm watching some kind of a love and hip hop in the background because, well, one of those smut reality shows because I do watch them. I'm not ashamed. I'm not gonna close my blinds and hide from the fact that I watch smut reality shows. But for some reason, my TV, when I turn it on, it's automatically on this one channel that shows the same series in repeat. And I was so excited to get to showing you this today that I didn't take the time to change the channel. So you're going to hear Peter Guns and all of them in the background. This is the old ones. This is like repeat. I guess they get syndication. I don't know. It's entertainment. Anyway, as you can see, I'm going all the way around the room. And then I'll do the same thing. Uh-oh. This is not for kids, apparently. They're cussing in the background. Sorry. Hide your kids' ears. They get paid to do that, too. I mean, I wish I could get paid to cuss at work. But anyway, hold on. I'm going to change the channel as soon as I finish this row, I promise you. But hopefully you're following along and you're able to see what I'm doing. And you don't want to use too much glue because you don't want the glue to be able to seep through and hit the other stone. Now, as you can see, there's a little bit of a space left here. So I'm just going to go back and push it down to cover the space and then just push these all back the opposite direction, leaving a tiny minuscule gap until it finally just looks like there's no gap between anything. And this is setting your first row. And sometimes you'll find as you're doing this, going back to spread it out just a little bit, that you actually overlapped a stone by mistake. So here's the first row. All right. Hold on while I turn the channel because I don't want nice kids to be being a bad influence. So while I'm changing it, you guys can go ahead and okay, hold on. She's not gonna punch nobody in the face. Sorry. And go ahead and look at the where I placed the first one. Now I'm going to go ahead and place the second row right around the same edge. I'm not going to use necessarily the honeycomb method to keep them in between each space. I'm going to put them right up against each other. So I'll show you that in a second. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and do the second row of glue. Now you don't want to put the row of glue right up against the first row, but you want to be so close because the stones aren't really that big. But you don't want to put them too close to that because you don't want it to seep over onto the existing stones and cloud up your surface. So you see how close it is, but it's not up against it all the way. All right. Put my pen back in my glue. Tilt it downward so the glue is ready. See how fast that glue was ready to come out when I was ready to use it again? Same thing. Picking up one stone at a time and placing them. Now you want to make sure you're put it right against that edge so that you're creating the line that's going to end up going across. That's the first one you want to do. And then you just push this one as close to it as possible. Now as you can see, it's not honeycomb. It's just, and it's not going to be able to be honeycomb because it gets thinner, less space as you go in. So even if you try to honeycomb it, it's going to get thrown off anyway. So the best bet is just put it right up against the edge of the one below it. And just keep working your way around that way. Don't force it in between. Again, if you're using a color paint on the tip or a stone that's close to the color that your tip already is, the gaps will be minimal, but embrace the gaps. You're going to always have gaps. It's no big deal. You can't really see them from a distance and all the sparkle anyway. And if anybody's face is that close to your toe tip, just move your foot a little bit and I bet you they'll back up. Now, if you're not as fast with putting the stones on to the point where you're able to get the whole row done before the glue starts to dry, then only use half a row of glue and then add the second half a row of glue when you get to that point. Depending on the glue you're using, it could dry way faster than others. So you just adjust based on what you're using. Liquid Fusion is kind of more liquid consistency. Not as liquid as, say, Crazy Glue or watery type, but it has some thickness to it, but it's definitely not as thick as things like E6000 and Loctite and whatnot. So this last one, again, there's a gap, so I'm going to pull it down because I want it to make the row across even. So the goal here is to make sure that the first one on each side is even with this row, more so than to make sure that these are up against it. And I'm just going to push these down so that they're close to touching, but maybe not exactly touching, but close enough that you won't really notice that they're not. And work my way all the way back around to adjust. Definitely, if you're using a glue that dries faster, you may have difficulty doing this part because it'll be locked onto your stone before you have a chance to even adjust. So you want to make sure you are a pro at placement when you're using a glue that will lock faster. Alright, see that? So the third row, I'm going to do it again. And the reason why you want to do these 3 rows first is because if you notice, this edge curves backwards right here. So you want to make sure you get to the part that's straight with the rest of it before you start going across the lines. So the third row, using this size stone, which is again 4mm or SS16, will put you right there even to the line. Okay. Next row of glue. Same thing. Don't put it up against the stone. Put it close to the stone, enough to get the glue on the stone, but not enough to seep on either side of the stones that are already there, are the ones you're about to put on. Close my glue. If I don't close my glue, it'll clog the hole, and then you will be irritated because you can't squeeze anything out. Now these glasses, well, I'll tell you after I finish this row because I don't want my glue to dry, but I'll tell you, but I'll show you later. But anyway, place this one again, keep it in line with that line you're creating, straight across, and then I will go back in and do the rest. Now you shouldn't have, you want to place it down as close to where you're going to need it to be as possible, because you really don't want to play around with it too much. Like, you don't want to start your stone down here and start sliding, because you'll be moving the glue, and the goal is that the surface of the stone is glue free. That's how you're going to get the maximized shine. So just a little movement is fine, but definitely don't play too much with it. Drowning is the leading cause of injury, death for children ages 1 to 4, and the highest percentage of drowning. So I am probably going to go into hyperspeed after I put the first row on across, because after that is really just filling it in. You still want to keep it the same pattern until you get down to the point where you're needing a filler stone. But if I get to that point, I will slow the hyperspeed down again and show it to you. Or maybe I won't hyperspeed. Maybe I'll just keep going. I probably should have did this live. Maybe I'll do the next one live, just so I can talk to people and I don't feel like I'm just here talking to myself. Now, I'm not going to probably cover this entire shoe with black stones. So I'm probably just going to keep the accents that are there. Okay, so again, there's a tiny, tiny, tiny gap. So I'm going to start moving them back a little bit because I need that one to be exactly where it is. Now, mind you, when you're moving backwards, you're not trying to push them tight. You're going to have a little bit of a gap between them. Until you get halfway back, you should have moved them enough to look like they're closed, but leaving just a millimeter of space between them eventually will make that gap disappear from that big one that you saw at first. And again, sometimes you'll go back and find that you overlapped anyway. Alright, so that's the 3 rows. And then you see how now this backwards curve has now gotten to where it's just going to go straight across the rest of the way. Sorry, I have bad allergies. So now I'm going to go do the first row across. Now you can continue going around the way we were going at first. Problem with that is you might not end up with a straight row. And you always want to make sure that the outline of anything that you're blinging has the straight row. As you work your way in, if it starts to get a little spacey or fillers or what have you, it's way less noticeable than if your edge is crooked. Right? So I don't know if you see that, but I made the first row going across. And then I'm just going to start right here and work my way straight across, using this edge as my guide to where my stones need to be. You can also use, and if you're using this kind of pencil, if you're using a katana, I just saw my katana. I don't really use the katana. Here it is. I don't really use my katana much because I don't like that. This is a katana picker pen. This part is replaceable, and then it has a little metal piece for you to be able to use to move what you need to move. I don't like it because once the tip goes, it starts getting wider and wider and wider, and there's no control, and I don't. So anyway, but it's cute though. I mean, it's got sparkles inside of it and everything. But anyway, you can use the edge of this to go across to make sure that all your stones are in line, or the back of the pencil. Make sure that they're not overhanging over the edge. Just run it so that it kind of places them right next to each other and not a little too low. But be careful not to push them too far away from the edge too, because then you'll have edge lip showing. Edge lip. That's funny. But if I were to bling the entire shoe in black around the decorations that are already on it, I would pretty much use the same. Alright, so there's a gap right there. See it? At the end. So I'm going to push these back and try to space them. It looks like if I'm a little bit tighter, I could probably fit another stone in there. Right. So I'm going to go back and push these back tighter and see if I can create enough space. And I did, to fit one more stone. Oop, I dropped it. Come on, you can fit in there. Push, push. Push, push. It fits, but there's no glue. Now that I've moved the other ones, I took the glue with it, so now I gotta put a dot of glue right there. Now, don't worry if it makes your row crooked like that. Just push them back down. Uh-oh. See, doing it backwards, I done messed up. That's okay, I'll just push it back up there. This time I'm gonna do this one so I can see myself doing it. Sorry. But if you're holding it in a comfortable position, you'll be able to push it back down to the edge and not go too far like I just did. But you know, mistakes will happen. Nothing is irreversible. It's glue and rhinestones. It's not rocket science, so don't you worry too much. I know it's taking me a little longer than anticipated, but I have to get them all straightened back on their spot again. Okay, so the goal was to get them all around the edge of the shoe. So this time I'll do it looking at it. And basically, I just use my pen and slowly just push them down before the glue dries. So now you'll see that they're all down. And then I'll use the back of my pen to just run across them to make sure they all get back up there even to the lip. Voila. Yesterday, a lot of us in the mid-50s, and really each day now for the rest of the week, we'll add 2, 3, 4 degrees. All right, so I'm going to go across one more time or 2 more times just to make sure I have a solid outline. And then I will start to. At some point, you'll end up with a little bit of glue on the tip of your picker pen, and you have to use your fingernail to get it off so it can pick and not keep dropping your stones. So with this kind, I like that because I can go back and sharpen it at any point, but the katanas, I'm not really sure what to do with them, to tell the truth. I'm sure people love them, but nobody has given me an answer to how do you keep it sharp. So again, you're just going to go right back in and put them right back. Now this will try its best to make you do honeycomb because it is a straight line, but don't force yourself to make it a honeycomb if it's not. If you push down too far and knock your stone down a little bit over the edge, push it right back up and make it even again. Because granted, this first row is a lot shorter to do than going all the way around, so your glue is going to give you a little bit more work time. Or if you're not that steady, you can do your first row and then stop right there until it dries, because then it won't succumb to your pushing downward. Alright, so I have a little gap again. I'm going to go back and push these back over towards, and this is why I said don't force yourself to do honeycomb, because you're going to have to push them away from the honeycomb pattern anyway. So there's a second row. I'm going to go ahead and do another row across. Now the reason why I'm going to do another row across because it looks like right here is just enough space for a stone to fit. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. As of now, I've included some rain shower chances in the Sunday forecast. Other models are a little stronger and a little colder with that system, so we'll be adjusting that. But at this point, you could start going back around in circles if you want to, but it's totally up to you at this point because you have set your solid lines at this point. It's a lot easier when you're going across and around. For me, anyway. I don't know why. It just makes me feel like I can go faster because it's just straight. I don't know. But. More than 70 artists and musicians in North Carolina are off to a bright start this year. In December, the Arts and Science Council awarded nearly $200,000 in support grants. Miranda Whittington introduces us to somebody would give me a grant for arts. I would love some grant money to do some art. You know, they say if you're doing what you love, you never work a day in your life, right?
The gift of music is something Gabriel Bello is blessed to have.
And again, if your bottom row succumbs to some pushing, just level it back out.
You know, I'm a few years away from playing saxophone 30 years, which sometimes I'm like, man, I should be way better.
It's hard to believe that doubt, though, once you
I don't believe these are resin stones. I mean, look at that shine. There's not even any light on it, and it's shining like glass. I think they packaged it wrong. Alright, so now I'm going to pour some more stones in my dish, because as you can see, I've used quite a few of them. So glass does shine better than resin. Like these are glass for sure. And You can't convince me because now that I'm looking at it from this angle with this light, they are shining like new money. I wish you could see it with the light. Let's see if I can get you some light. See that? Look at that.
Old House. There's about 3 or 4 legit studios that people know
Anyway.
about in Charlotte.
Now I'm going to just start going back around
The grand piano will be right here.
and filling in the space that's left.
Science Council first awarded Bello over $5,000 to lay the concrete for his studio. Then in December, he was awarded another $3,000 from the ASC that will help with framing materials.
I see the vocal booth.
Bello's plans is to launch his studios and provide it free of charge to ministries, schools, and up-and-coming artists in the community. The gift of music.
And you just start right down here in this corner. The same place you would start if you were going straight across. But I'm just going that way instead. Wait, I'm holding the shoe wrong, so you can't really see. Okay, there you go. Want all of this upside down just for you, my blingies. Wait, let me move it so you can see a little bit more now that I'm getting.
Studio finished and ready for use in the spring. You can see the complete list of ASC grant recipients on our Spectrum News 1 app. Coming up at the top of the hour, our National Health Reporter shares a way the CDC tracks COVID-19 trends. We'll have that story and many more in just a minute.
Oh, I forgot to tell you about the glasses. Look how fast my memory goes away. So the glasses, I think I'm ready to switch up my style of magnifying. I don't know, because the part that rests on your nose, it's like these little rubber tabs that wrapped around the little nose rest area, and that they kind of busted as from being used. All right, so here we have something learning. Check it out. So this little space right here is not quite big enough for a stone. It looks like it is, but it's not. Let me see if I can show you. So it looks like it would be enough space, but if you can notice, it won't snap down into place. Oop. Now I could probably force it because it's just that little bit. But I don't want to mess up this line if I force it. So I have and I usually always buy a pack of stones, and then I'll buy a pack of mixed stones to come in size 2 to 6 millimeters, and they have all different sizes in it. So I always buy the pack of base size I think I'm going to need for a project, and then 1 pack of mix just for the fillers, because I don't really use as many fillers, and I don't do a lot of scatter method, so different size stones don't really mean anything to me for that reason, other than filling. So what I'll do is I will find a stone that is smaller than the basic size I was using, and I will use it to fill in this space instead. Oops, no glue. Hold on. Put a dot of glue. Alright. Alright, and I'll put it in this space instead. Oops. So whether you want a standard asphalt shingle, slate roof, metal roof, tile roof, a flat roof system, or cedar wood. Now it is smaller than the space, so you can see the gap right there. So then I'll go back and move them back like I did the last time. Closer, oops, sorry. Closer to that one, and close in the space so as to not leave that gap.
You're watching Spectrum News 1. It's 3 o'clock.
So you can see this one stone right here is the smaller stone, and you can see the difference in the height from this one to this one. But that was the filler stone.
The principals are now serving in new assignments
But now
within the district as interim principal.
there's a space right here.
In that interim role until those
So if I
positions
start
are
going back around,
Mecklenburg County Commissioners approved
I
Commissioner
don't think this is the size I'm using either. So I might have to start with that small size again and go across.
During an emergency meeting, they voted to continue to pay her and appoint someone else in her place while she is on that leave time. Salisbury Police start a recruitment tour this week. It's called Pull Up and Apply. That's the name of the campaign. The goal is to get people to fill current vacancies and create recruiting networks within the region.
Here's a smaller stone, and it's going to fill.
Right now, we'll get a quick
That might even need a smaller stone still.
We had a cold start to our Wednesday
Really small
20s
to get up in that little corner.
Morning, but it has been a nice warm up since those cold low temperatures occurred. Highs
That's a really tiny stone up in there. Right
continuing all across the
there.
We'll have a clear and chilly overnight period ahead for tonight. So
and then I'll go straight across with the size that I had been using for the rest of the shoe. There's no glue right there in the corner. Try this again.
It's Wednesday, February 9th. Let's get straight
to your top
stories today. Health experts in North Carolina say the Omicron wave of COVID-19 that has surged recently is showing signs of passing. The state
that's good news.
5,000 new cases of the virus in each of the past 2 days.
They're changing the narrative on it again.
Infectious disease experts say
Anyway.
expect that trend to continue.
That's why I watch smut TV, because if I gotta hear bad news stuff, I might as well be entertained, right? Alright, so it left a little tiny hole on that side too, right there. See that little hole? I know it's shiny because it's glue in it, but it's just a dotted glue, but that hole is blank. I'm gonna put a little tiny stone in it.
Time for a look at health news for you. New research finds that vaping is not an effective way to quit smoking, and the CDC expanded.
I think I use a size that's just a little bit bigger than I had space for. Now remember when I said you can force it? So see if I try to force this one back down, how it's making all these jack up. That's why it's just better to just use the size that you need. So I'm going to go back and take this little one out because I used one that was a little bit too big. I didn't think I needed to use 2 millimeter, but I guess I do instead of the next size. And then I'll push the other ones back in their space.
Downward trend, and they're also finding that many people who used to smoke have picked the habit back up, and experts point to just the tremendous stress that many have been under.
So this little section that's left, I put the glue in the whole section, and then I just kind of fill it in, trying to stay as close to the line diagram as I can. But you just never know in this section if you'll be able to stay. But I put the glue in to get into the small areas early, because that's not going to dry up before I finish. That's like as much as 1 row. But don't put too much again. Watch your glue, because you don't want it to seep up into the existing stones. So I'm going to still start with the size that I have been working with, because the most of them I want to use that size. And you just want to make sure you're spacing it properly. Now you might at this point, see I put this one here, but if you can see there's space here, and if I push it up, it's going to be space under it. So I'm really going to try to push these together, the last rows I did, to kind of lock it around that one, so that there's not a lot of space anywhere. So now it's touching all of them, and the only space is this tiny little gap right here, which I'll use a 2 millimeter from the mix pack to stick in that little spot. Now you don't have to fill every little spot and gap, but if it's enough for a 2, put a 2 there. If it's not enough for a 2, don't put a 2 there. And if it's enough
to join the effort.
For you just to move your other stones around and make it just a little space between all of them. Move them around. Nobody has to be perfect. So you see the tiny, tiny, tiny two right there. And now I'm going to go through and keep filling in.
Early warning systems ahead of a new surge or an outbreak, Claudine.
Trying to still go around the line. Keep them looking
What are experts saying about that?
like straight lines.
Well, I'm in New York City right now.
Until I
This is
can't.
a major issue of debate, and across the board, across the country, public health experts are calling on the CDC to offer some clear guidance, a clear off ramp of, if you will, about when it's appropriate to.
Look at that. It was a perfect row because it ended up with just enough space to put that last one in. And I'm still going to keep going. Now I'm going to go across, straight across.
And vaccination rates are rising and high enough that there really isn't a reason for kids to continue to wear masks indefinitely in school.
And sometimes when I get here, I'll put one against the bottom row, then the next one against the top row, then the next one against the bottom row, the next one against the top row. That way when I go back and fill, you don't see a whole row of smaller stones. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Because it gets to the point where you won't be able to fit your the size you've been using all the way across. Alright, so you see that zigzag pattern I did? One down the bottom, one at the top, one down the bottom, and this one's down the bottom too. So these little gaps in between, I'll use tiny stones to fill, but I don't want a whole row of tiny stones, so I don't want to put them the size I've been using straight across, so straight around, and then I have a whole row of tiny stones because that'll be more obvious than filling in the gaps with smaller stones. If you understand what I'm saying. Not to mention, all of these gaps aren't going to be the size of a tiny 2mm. Some of them are going to be the size of a 4mm or 3mm. And this is mixed sets boxes. Oh, that stone's upside down. Hold on. The mixed set packs have all sizes, so you'll end up using a few different sizes in this last section here.
If you are one of the more than 30 million families who have already received the child tax credit, you still need to file your taxes. So that is the only way to receive the second half of what you are owed. So remember, you are owed more, but you still need to file your taxes.
And you have until April 18th to file. You can check your eligibility.
And you can still shift the other ones that are there around if you don't have enough space to. If you don't have enough stone to fill the whole space, just use the existing stones and move them just a little bit. Now I'm shaking this thing because there's no little tiny. Oh, here's one. 2mm. They're so hard to see. This one's going to need 2mm. This is my mix pack again because I need to get another 2mm. There it is. Shake my dish so that it can turn over for me. Alright. And the last one.
Forged in tradition with the spirit of forward thinking, the best from our past, designed for the future. Redefining the premium SUV. Drive in style. Drive the new Wagoneer. Get a new 2020.
I'm just shifting stones around a little bit to fill in existing gaps. I do have enough space for one more 2. Just one little tiny itty bitty space right there. See it? I'm going to take off this so you can see it with some light shining on it. And that is how you do the tip of a Converse.
For auto insurance, but the coverage and service let you down, you might suffer from saver's remorse.
Avoid saver's remorse and switch to a
And if you enjoyed this process, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel
rates and every possible
for more
discount.
how-tos.
Together, we can put an end to saver's remorse. Because saving
And my
on
TikTok
auto insurance
to see them in
sacrificing
faster
coverage and service.
speed.
Auto insurance.
I'm under Bling It On by Mo, BLING space IT space ON space BY space MOE. Bling It On by Mo on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. Thanks for watching.